Are you mocking us? What's with this amount? My parents' voices boomed through the phone one afternoon after repeated calls. When I finally picked up, my father's anger caught me off guard, and I struggled to understand what he was talking about. Confused, I asked for an explanation, only to learn they were upset over the money I'd been sending them. Apparently, they believed I was contributing just $50 monthly, compared to my sister Ally, who they said was sending $4,000 every month. That's not right. I'm also sending $4,000 each month, I responded, trying to keep calm. Don't lie, my father retorted. Ally, being a model, makes much more than you. She's been sending us $44,000 every month. I'm really disappointed. Violet, Ally is just so smart and thoughtful, he said with an air of finality. My mother chimed in, echoing his frustration. Are you just living it up on your own? Spending your money however you like? Why can't you be more like Ally? She supports us generously, and here you are, barely helping. As usual, my parents had nothing but praise for Ally. Their accusations left me bewildered and hurt. Why did they think I was sending only 50 cents? Though I felt upset, I decided not to argue. Instead, I chose to follow their wishes and stopped sending any money for a while, hoping that might finally reveal the truth of my contributions. I am Violet, a 28-year-old employee at a food processing company. My sister Ally is 5 years younger than me and, since birth, has captivated everyone with her actress-like beauty. People would often stop to marvel at her, praising her cuteness. Meanwhile, I looked more ordinary. Adults frequently compared us, chuckling as they commented, Violet's face is so plain. Our parents poured all their attention into Ally, assuming she was destined to become an actress or model. They treated her with a care and favoritism I never knew. While I wore hand-me-downs from neighbors, Ally was always dressed in the latest styles. My parents enrolled her in every class or activity she showed interest in, but I was never given the same opportunities. Naturally, Ally became more and more entitled, taking my things whenever she pleased. I don't have to share my stuff with you, Violet, but I can use whatever I want of yours, she'd say as she snatched my favorite stationery items one by one. Complaints to my parents were useless. They'd dismiss me with a quick forgive her. She's still a child. Or, you're the older sister. You should be understanding. Our parents never corrected her behavior, and their constant favoritism left me feeling alone and resigned. I eventually accepted this as a part of my life. When I was in elementary school, Ally insisted on having her own room, and, predictably, my parents accommodated her by asking me to move to the living room, where they kept portraits of our grandparents. You don't have many clothes. All you need is a place to sleep, they said, assuring me it would be enough. Reluctantly, I moved my bedding to the living room, surrounded by framed photos of my grandparents, who had passed away shortly after Ally was born. Unlike my parents, they had loved me dearly. It was my grandfather who'd chosen my name, Violet, because I was born during violet season in the spring. He adored violets, and his love for the flower became a small but precious connection to him. When I was little, I loved sitting on my grandfather's lap. He was warm and comforting, and I always felt safe in his embrace. I still remember him saying, Violet, no matter how tough things get, you'll overcome them, and when you do, happiness will bloom again, just like violets in spring. That memory had stayed with me over the years. Despite his encouragement, my parents' favoritism toward my younger sister, Ally, only grew. Feeling out of place at home, I eventually developed my own dream of becoming a school nurse. I remember one evening, sharing my plans to take the university entrance exams, but my parents dismissed the idea immediately. We can't afford university for you, they said. You're the older sister, Violet. Think of Ally. We need to save for her future. Their answer crushed my dreams. Our family wasn't struggling financially. We were middle class. Yet my parents seemed determined to prioritize Ally's future, providing her with all the opportunities I'd never had. After high school, I went straight into the workforce. While Ally went off to a prestigious university, I got a job at a small company a few stations away from home. Though I had hoped to stay at home and save, I realized that staying would only deepen my feelings of being overlooked. So, I rented a small studio apartment close to work. Living alone felt liberating, as I no longer felt suffocated by my parents' house. Meanwhile, Ally continued to live with our parents after graduating, working as a model after being scouted by a talent agency. My parents were thrilled, bragging daily about her budding career. One day, Ally called me out of the blue. "We should do something to thank Mom and Dad," she said brightly. "Everything we've accomplished is because of them. Let's repay them, starting now." Her enthusiasm surprised me. Ally, who once seemed only to care about herself, had changed. "I think we should send them $4,000 a month," she suggested. $4,000? I was taken aback. That was an enormous amount, especially for me, but she seemed set on it. "Let's surprise them and start this month." Despite my doubts, Ally had mentioned our parents were struggling with debt they said they'd accumulated for our sake. Wanting to help, I agreed to Ally's plan, but with my limited income, contributing $4,000 meant dipping into my savings and taking on extra work. I barely made $3,000 a month, so I'd need another source of income to cover it. I took a weekend job as a security guard at a construction site. It paid decently, but it was exhausting. In summer, I worked under the blazing sun. In winter, I braved the bitter cold. My coworkers, noticing my effort, often treated me to food and drinks, which helped lighten my spirits. I also cut my spending, avoided eating out, and saved every cent I could. Yet, I still struggled to meet the $4,000 goal. Maybe I need another way to increase my income. A certification could help, I thought. Determined, I threw myself into studying, sacrificing sleep to fit in both work and preparation. Days blurred together in a relentless cycle, and one evening, I missed several calls from my parents. Finally, I called them back, worried something was wrong. "Sorry, I couldn't answer sooner. Did something happen?" I asked. My father's voice exploded through the phone. "You're horrible. What do you think we are to you?" I was speechless, confused by his anger. "Are you mocking us? What is this pathetic amount?" he demanded. "What are you talking about? You mean the money I send?" I stammered, not understanding his outrage. "Ally sends $4,000, and you send just 50 cents? That's impossible. I've been sending $4,000 every month, just like we agreed," I responded firmly, trying to stand my ground. My father's words left me stunned. "What?" I asked, incredulity seeping into my voice. "Don't lie," he snapped. "Ollie earns more than you with her modeling work, so she's the one sending us $4,000 every month. I'm really disappointed in you. Ollie is so smart," he said, frustration thick in his tone. My mother chimed in, her voice tinged with disappointment. "Are you just enjoying living alone and spending money as you please? Why don't you learn from your sister? She sends us so much money she earned, while you don't care about us at all," she added, sighing. What's going on? I could barely process their words. I was utterly confused, and a wave of sadness overwhelmed me. I couldn't find the words to explain myself. I recalled Ally's suggestion, "Let's keep it a secret and use the name Rainbow when we send the money." I hadn't known at the time that Ally's stage name was Rain, so when the 50-cent deposit showed up under my name, my parents mistakenly thought it was me sending such a small amount. Before I could explain, they shouted, "We don't need your mocking 50 cents, and slammed down the phone. I was left feeling bitter and betrayed by Ally for setting me up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wrestled with complex emotions, wondering if I should keep sending money when it seemed like my efforts were being undermined. I decided to call Nina, my high school friend, who worked at a consulting firm. Nina had always been reliable, offering honest advice. Nina was a straight shooter and had always been someone I could count on for solid guidance. Luckily, her office was nearby, so we arranged to meet for lunch and talk things through. "You said you needed to talk. What's going on?" she asked, her eyes studying my face as she noticed something was off. "I need to talk about my family," I began, explaining everything that had happened in the past few weeks. As Nina listened, she nodded thoughtfully, but when I told her about the $4,000 and my parents' financial claims, her reaction was one of shock. "Are your parents really struggling with money? They're in their 50s, right?" she asked, clearly puzzled by the amount of $4,000. "It sounds like they have debts." "It's money they spent on us," I explained. "My sister Ally suggested we send them money to show our gratitude." Nina's surprise was evident, but she quickly gathered her thoughts. "You say it's money spent on both of you, but didn't you not go to university? Isn't most of it really money spent on Ally? And isn't your dad still working? There's no way they suddenly need $4,000 when they've been fine up until now. If they think your contribution is just 50 cents, why not stop the payments, like they suggested?" I thought about it for a moment and found myself agreeing with Nina's advice. "You're too kind, Violet," Nina said gently. "You shouldn't let yourself be pushed around." Her words resonated deeply. It struck me that I'd been putting others' needs ahead of my own for so long, and I needed to reconsider my place in the family dynamic. 2 months later, my phone started ringing nonstop from the morning. When it became too persistent, I finally answered, already bracing for what was to come. It was Ally, and she was furious. "Why haven't you been answering the phone all morning? And why did you stop sending money without telling me? What were you thinking?" she yelled, her frustration clear in her voice. "I'm already overwhelmed with my own life," I said firmly. "I was told our parents were struggling because the $4,000 wasn't coming in. But in reality, I knew the $4,000 had become a symbol of Ollie's pride and our parents' wasteful spending. The truth was, Nina, through her network, had told me everything. Ollie wasn't really making money from modeling, she was barely getting by. And Nina had learned that Ollie was spending a lot on clothes and cosmetics. Nina's insights only deepened my growing anger. Here I was, cutting back on expenses and working part-time to make ends meet, while Ollie had the nerve to tell her friends, "My big sister is my source of funds, so I rely on her money." But lately, I've been struggling because I haven't gotten money from her. I might have to cut back on facials and cosmetics for a while. I was floored when I discovered that my mother was buying luxury brands, while my father, instead of working, was gambling. It was infuriating. I had been funding their extravagant lifestyle, all while trying to live within my means. "Do you think I don't know Dad is working? So my money isn't needed, right?" I declared, confronting the absurdity of it all. A week passed, and I thought I had heard everything. But then, my parents came to me. They had realized the $4,000 payments had stopped and, predictably, Ollie had told them the truth. Apparently, she had confessed through tears that she couldn't afford to send the money. She had been telling them that her modeling career was thriving, but in truth, she wasn't earning much and was a burden to the agency. The reality was, Ollie only worked as a model occasionally, and while she had looks, she lacked the skills in singing or dancing that would have helped her succeed in the entertainment industry. She was mostly doing low-paying jobs, like modeling for inexpensive online shopping catalogs. Our parents found out, and of course, they were furious. "We've been strict with Ollie," My father said with an air of entitlement. Don't worry. Just keep sending money like before. There was no apology for accusing me of lying. We've managed for 2 months, so please deposit the money when you can. You are reliable. After all, my mother added, making demands without any sense of shame. I asked. I heard from Ollie there was some debt. Is that true? A question that had been on my mind for a while. Debt? No way. My father answered defiantly. We covered the tuition with your grandfather's inheritance. So, Ollie's claims that they were in debt were false. We just need a little more for shopping since your father's salary isn't enough. My mother said nonchalantly. It was clear they had more than enough for their lifestyle, and my money was unnecessary. I pressed. Why doesn't Ollie get a full-time job somewhere? My father's response was sharp. Is that how you talk to your own parents? I didn't raise a daughter to act like this. My mother followed with, we don't need a daughter like you. Their disdain was palpable. If you're going to be like that, we'll just use the savings your grandfather left for you. You're no longer part of this family. Their words hit hard, but I felt clarity. Do as you like, I replied, my voice steady. But from now on, don't contact me again. I realized that I didn't want to be treated as a convenience anymore by my parents or Ollie. When they left, I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. What was I even to my family? 2 months later, I had built a life on my own. I had studied hard and earned a small business consultant certification. My salary had improved thanks to Nina's introduction to a new job, and I was thriving. I had moved up to a team leader position and was leading a fulfilling life. The day the doorbell rang again, I was surprised to see my parents and Ollie standing there. I hadn't expected to see them again. Reluctantly, I opened the door. My parents and Ollie were taken aback by my appearance, and I was just as surprised by theirs. What's with that look? They asked in disbelief, noticing the change in me. I had become more polished and was wearing nicer things than before. I had a new sense of confidence and pride. My life had changed, and I had worked hard to get there. It felt strange to be looked at like this, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. I had found my own path, free from the expectations of a family that had never truly appreciated me. I spoke calmly. Before you indulge in such luxuries, maybe you should think about contributing some money. They, however, didn't take it well. Are you really going to abandon your struggling family? They pleaded. Just lend us some money, please. The 3 of them said whatever came to mind, with no regard for what was actually happening. I was sickened by their audacity. It was clear they only came to me because they had realized I was earning more now. I finally snapped. With Dad's and Ally's income, you can live a comfortable life. The truth was, Ally's work was scarce. The modeling industry was brutal. What do you know, big sister? Ally said, her voice shaky, on the verge of tears. Her once radiant appearance had faded, and she was struggling. Despite her challenges, Ally had been recruited by another agency that believed she had potential as an actress. She was convinced this was her big break and borrowed money from our parents to join, even using part of our father's early retirement severance pay. But after paying the hefty fee, they could never contact anyone from the agency again. No formal contract had even been signed. It turned out to be a scam. I was speechless, stunned by the reckless choices they made. Before you come to me for help, go to the police, I advised. Just then, someone from a consumer finance company arrived, asking, "Are you family?" They had tracked me down. I learned that my parents and Ally had borrowed a significant amount of money, betting on Ally's acting career, but it hadn't panned out. Meanwhile, Ally had also been spending her time de-stressing at nightclubs. The money was gone. My parents, with no income, had been chasing their own dreams and gambling, and in the end, they lost everything. When the finance company asked about our relationship, I flatly denied knowing any of them. I don't know these people at all. I have nothing to do with them, I said, walking away from the situation. It wasn't long before my parents filed for bankruptcy, which wiped out their debts. They sold the house and moved into a rundown apartment. Both of them found jobs through a temporary agency and seemed to be scraping by. But the oddest thing happened. My father ended up at the same construction site where I had once worked part-time. "I'll be in your care starting today," my father said, trying to be polite. "Aw, it's the old man. Help him out. There used to be a young lady here before, but she quit. She worked hard, sending money back to her parents. I'd love to see the faces of parents who make their daughter work at a construction site," one of the workers remarked. My father's face stiffened with embarrassment. As for Ally, she had given up on modeling and entered the nightlife scene, but her selfish nature quickly made her unpopular with customers. She bounced between nightclubs and lounges, getting fired from each one, until she finally landed a job at a small bar. Her appearance changed drastically, as she had started drinking heavily. Among the regulars at the bar, her story of being a model seemed more like a joke. "A model? Who are you kidding?" one of them mocked. "Look in the mirror." I had severed ties with my parents and sister years ago, and now I was relishing the freedom that came with it. 5 years had passed since that decision, and today, I was attending Nina's wedding. The ceremony took place in a chapel in Miami. Perched above the sparkling sea, the vast blue ocean and sky stretched endlessly before me, creating an atmosphere that felt wide open and full of possibility. Nina stood beside her new husband, a tall man with a solid build and a smile that matched her own. Their love radiated, and I could sense the exciting new life blossoming between them. Nina had always been dedicated to her work, and though she had been focused on her career for some time, she had met her husband through a colleague. "I achieve everything I want on my own. I get rid of what I don't need quickly. Violet, you should learn to do the same and face your own feelings," Nina said, her smile glowing brighter than ever. Her husband laughed, teasing, "Just don't throw me away, okay?" I smiled the widest I could, my heart full of gratitude. "I'm really grateful to you, Nina. Be happy," I said. Nina's wedding wasn't just a celebration of her love but a reminder of the freedom she had helped me find, and I celebrated it wholeheartedly. As the evening drew to a close, a man arrived at the venue, panting as if he'd been rushing. Nina introduced him as Nicholas, or Nick. He was tall, well-built, and had a charming smile that made his presence immediately noticeable. Nina mentioned that he ran an architectural firm. "I thought you and Nick would get along. You two seem to have the same personality," she joked, causing both Nick and I to laugh in unison. We quickly found common ground and decided to go out for a meal together. I couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement inside, like violets blooming in my chest. From now on, I was determined to embrace both work and love, savoring every moment of life. "Grandpa," I thought, "I hope you're watching over me from up there. I'll make sure to bloom fully."